Hi everyone, my name is Faaeza Williams and welcome to Cookery Conversations at the Aberfood Surplus Eco Food Sharing Hub. While I enjoy cooking dishes from various parts of the world, all different kinds of cuisine, when it comes to comfort food, I often revert to what my mother used to make for us. And since I am originally from India, these recipes are essentially Indian. So today I'm going to make two recipes and the reason I've chosen these two recipes are because both these recipes can be eaten together. So the first one is a naan, which is actually quite versatile and can be eaten with various different dishes. The second one is a whole steamed cauliflower made in an Indian way, and that is my mother's recipe. So we will start off with the naan, and for that we need the following ingredients. So we've got hand hot milk here, 150 ml, and some caster sugar which will go into the milk, and some dried active yeast which will also go into the milk. Then in this bowl I've got 450 grams of plain flour mixed with a teaspoon of salt. Now the amount of salt that you add is entirely up to your taste. Then we've got one beaten egg, and we've got 150 ml of yogurt, and some oil, 2 tablespoons of oil which I'm going to put. And we also need 1 teaspoon of baking powder which will go into the flour. But to start off, we need to create a froth with sugar and yeast. So I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of dried active yeast into the milk. Along with 1 teaspoon of caster sugar. Now give it a good stir and simply leave it for about 15-20 minutes and until it starts creating a kind of froth on the surface. Now, apart from this, we are going to need the following bits of equipment. So you've got a board and a rolling pin, a clean cloth which can be used to cover the bowl while the dough is proving, and we've got 2 baking sheets. Use something which is a little bit heavier. Okay, so as you can see, the mixture of milk, yeast and sugar has become frothy like this. It actually hasn't taken 15 to 20 minutes as it usually does, because today is a very hot and humid day. So it's worked very quickly. And so now I'm going to start making the dough. For that we need just 1 more teaspoon of sugar that goes into this flour and salt mixture, and 1 teaspoon leveled of baking powder. Just give that a good mix. Now we can start adding all the other ingredients. So first things first, we make a well in the middle and add the yeast mixture, the beaten egg, the yogurt, 2 tablespoons of oil, you can start bringing it all together. Start off with a knife because it makes it much easier. and then go in with your hands once the mixture starts coming together. So now the mixture is starting to come together, and I'm going to go in with my hands and form the dough. They're clean, don't worry, I have washed them. So as you can see, this has formed a nice soft dough, and it's all come together. So now in this bowl I just have some extra plain flour to put onto the work surface. So just lightly flour your work surface, clean work surface, and just dip the dough out onto it. And now begins the process of kneading. Now many people have different ways of kneading, but this was the way that I was taught, so I'm going to go on like this. And this needs to be kneaded for 10 minutes. Right now it still looks a bit sticky, but once it's you finish kneading it for 10 minutes, it's going to come together and become nice and smooth and elastic, and you may need to keep adding some flour to your work surface. And this is no different from making bread, regular bread. So once the dough has proved the first time round, that's it. You just shape your naans and it's ready to go. You just need some more flour. The heat and the humidity doesn't help, it just makes it more sticky. Just continue kneading this for 10 minutes. So as you can see, the dough has now become a nice elastic dough, and it's nice and smooth, and I've been kneading it for about 10 minutes now. All we need to do is put it back in this bowl, which has now been oiled well, just so that when the dough rises it doesn't stick to the bowl. Yeah? And you just need to let it rise, cover it with a damp towel, and let it rise for about an hour. There is often a misconception that all Indian food takes ages to make. So another reason why I've chosen the cauliflower recipe in particular is to kind of prove that something really delicious can be made in a matter of about half an hour to 45 minutes. That's all it takes. And the naan, once you make it, yes, it does take a bit of time because you've got to leave it to prove and then shape it out. But once it's made, you can make a larger batch and you can also freeze them. They freeze really well. So it's worth the effort to make it once and then just put it in the freezer. And then you've got it for future meals as well. So now the dough has been proving for an hour exactly. And as you can see, it's done a fantastic job of rising. It's definitely doubled in size and it's looking lovely and fluffy. Now, all you need to do is gently punch it down so that the air kind of is knocked out of it. Now, all I need to do is divide this into 6 parts and roll each one out. I'll just show you how I do the first one. Take a bit of flour on the board. Also, make sure you flour your rolling pin. And take one of these and just gently roll. You can make it into whichever kind of shape you want. but the traditional naan shape is a teardrop kind of shape. Mine come out in all kinds of shapes and sizes, so don't worry about it. This is kind of it. Now you can set this aside while I work on the other 5. So as you can see, I've made 6 different shaped naans, since that's what usually happens with me. I have then sprinkled some nigella seeds or onion seeds on top of it. If you want to make a garlic and coriander naan, for instance, you can just incorporate some garlic and some fresh coriander into the naan when you're making the dough itself. And that will give you the garlic and coriander naan. The other thing is that the Turkish pide, which we have the anglicized version of pita, is actually quite a similar dough, and you can put an egg wash on top of this dough and make pide instead, because they will also come up with a fluffy texture and that bit of a pocket that we know with pita. So it's a very similar recipe, just the proportions are slightly different. Okay, so I have been preheating the oven at the maximum temperature that your oven goes. And I had put this baking tray into the oven to heat up. Now I'm just going to put the naans onto this baking tray. And place it in the oven for about 3 to 4 minutes. That should be plenty to make it puff up and golden brown. So it's been 4 minutes since the naans have been in the oven, and there we have it. They are beautifully golden and puffed up, and please do try this recipe because it's delicious, and they're very versatile as well. And happy baking. Thank you very much for listening and watching. Hi everyone. Today we're going to be making a whole steamed cauliflower, but with an Indian twist. This is my mother's recipe, and for this we're going to use a whole cauliflower. As you can see, the leaves have been removed, and the stalk, if the stalk is a little bit uneven, just cut it so that the bottom is even, so that it stays in a stable manner in the pan. Apart from that, we need 2 onions, roughly chopped. I've just cut them into quarters, peeled and cut into quarters. 4 to 5 garlic cloves, which I've just peeled, and about 1 inch of ginger, which I've just roughly chopped. Apart from that, we need 1 cup of yogurt and a few spices. So in my spice box, from my spice box, I will be using half a teaspoon of turmeric, 1 teaspoon of ground cumin, 1 teaspoon of ground coriander, half a teaspoon of red chili powder, and about 1/4 teaspoon of garam masala. The red chili powder and the garam masala you can alter to your taste. And of course, apart from that, we've got salt to taste as well. And right at the end, we've got some fresh coriander as a garnish. Okay, so this is what the paste should look like of the onions, ginger and garlic. and it takes about a minute or so for it in order to reach this consistency. Okay, so the onion, garlic and ginger mixture has now been frying off in the 2 tablespoons of oil for about 10 minutes, and it looks about ready and it smells right. So now we need to add the spices. So we've got 1 teaspoon of ground cumin. This small spoon that I have is a half teaspoon measure, which is why I'm putting 2. 1 teaspoon of ground coriander, and about 1/4 to half teaspoon of chili powder, and about a 1/4 teaspoon of garam masala. A little pinch more for good measure. And salt to taste, which we have in a Marmite jar. And now these spices need to cook out properly. Once again, your nose can be your guide, because you will know when the raw smell of the spices has cooked out, and it usually takes about 3 to 4 minutes to do this. And make sure that you do this, because there's nothing worse than having raw spices. Okay, so the cauliflower has now been parboiled. I've left it in there for about 5 minutes, and I'm going to turn the gas off and carefully lift it off the pan. And set it aside until we need it later. Okay, so the spices now have been cooking out for about 3 to 4 minutes, and this is about right. It's now time to add the yogurt. It's about a cup of yogurt. Yeah. And this now needs to cook out for another 5 minutes or so that everything gets blended in together and mixed properly and cooked out as well. So this has been cooking out for about 5 to 7 minutes. So the yogurt has now completely amalgamated with the onion, garlic and ginger mixture and the spices. I had 0% natural yogurt at home, so that tends to be runnier. If you have the regular natural yogurt, the full fat one, that's even better. But that's thicker, so you might need to add a little water in order to get the consistency like this. Now this is done, so I'm going to just turn the flame off for a while, and I'm going to baste the cauliflower that we have ready here. So just make sure that all of it is covered on the top, and if possible just let it go through, just make a few dents so that it goes through the grooves as well. And we're going to use about half of this gravy, the sauce, to put on top of the cauliflower. And now we're just going to lift the cauliflower and put it back in the pan on top of this remaining sauce. And use the rest of the sauce on the board also to place on top of the cauliflower. Also, before basting the cauliflower, it would be good if you just tasted the sauce to make sure that the salt levels are to your taste. Now, all we need to do is turn the gas back on. Keep it to a low to medium heat. Make sure that you keep it to a low to medium heat the whole way through, because we don't want to burn any of these ingredients at any point. And yogurt can get burnt quite quickly. So this is all we need to do now. And cover the pan and let it steam for about 15 minutes. It's been 15 minutes since the cauliflower has been steaming, and I'm going to test whether it's done, and this is the best way to test it. So take a sharp knife and go straight through the middle, and you'll be able to feel the doneness of the cauliflower because the knife will go straight through, and this means that it's done. So I'm going to turn the flame off, and we're ready to serve.